Oh, Francis, leaders in the workplace today are dealing with a lot. AI disruption, market volatility, geopolitical tensions. It's a
It's a
lot.
lot. It's a lot. And we definitely see some leaders are like rising to the challenge, and others just feel like they're getting stuck.
Yeah, there are patterns to the executives that are weathering this storm, behaviors, mindsets, decisions that are making a difference. So today on the show, we're going to talk about what it takes to lead in high stakes, fast moving uncertainty. And we're going to talk to one leader we think is pulling it off exceptionally well. This is Fixable, a show where we take the problems at work that feel unfixable and prove that they are not. I'm Ann Morris.
I'm Frances Fry.
Today, we're excited to get a direct report from the front lines of leadership with the wildly talented Dara Treseder. She's the Chief Marketing and Commercial Officer at the tech company Autodesk.
Dara!
I know. I want to talk about why we wanted to bring her onto the show today. So first, Autodesk is a super interesting company. For people who don't know it, Autodesk makes software for people who make things in the real world. So architects, engineers, designers, all of these jobs are now changing at lightning speed, and Autodesk is sitting at the center of these transformations.
And as awesome as Autodesk is, that's not why we have Dara here.
Yes, we are not here today to sell our listeners on Autodesk. What makes Dara so interesting to us in this moment is how effectively she is leading in this disruptive and fast-moving moment. So many of us are in a fetal position and Dara seems to be thriving. So I want to talk to her about why and how.
Yeah, she does seem to be living her best life while everyone else is frantic. She's just smoothly climbing the mountain, wind at her back, hair blowing.
Hair flowing, yeah.
I've known Dara for quite a while, and every day she seems to also gain wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever she's doing to cope, I think she's also doing to gain capabilities, and I too want to learn what her secret is.
Dara Treseder, welcome to Fixable.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So you missed the introduction where we said lots of nice things about you.
Aw.
And we don't usually do this with guests, but I want to give you the thesis of this conversation right up front, which is that while the rest of us are in a fetal position at work, you seem to be thriving. Do you have a reaction to that statement? Does that seem right? Is that what you're feeling when you go to work?
Yeah, that is what I'm feeling. I feel very grateful. In today's world, it's so easy to focus on all of the things that are not going well. And it's nice to sometimes just think about the things that are going well.
I'd love to start with your story. It seems like you have soared to the top of corporate America relatively quickly. I can imagine it didn't exactly feel that way, but what do you attribute your success to?
Wow. Well, I would say I attribute my success to persistence, resilience, grit, grace. And the last thing I would say is, sponsors. Advice is cheap. Advocacy is expensive. I always hate the term self-made. I'm like, what does that even mean? Nobody is self-made, because even if you did it a lot by yourself and you're the one who came up with the idea, you had a team of people who worked with you. You had people who opened doors, people who said yes, people who wrote checks, people who did the work. And so I don't believe I'm self-made. I believe I'm community made, right? There's so many people who advocated and helped to get me to where I am, whether it was my grandfather who emptied his bank account so that I could go to Harvard for university, and my parents who instilled so much in me, my father and my mother who helped me believe that I could be something and someone and kind of charter a path that was unknown to me, or all the amazing people that I've had the privilege to work with, learn from, serve, lead. All of those people have been a part of my journey.
I want to parse that beautiful list: persistence, resilience, grit, grace, and then I have a very practical question about sponsorship. But where Where did you learn those first four things?
This kind of started from just being a little girl growing up. This is Nigerian mother advice. My older sister she's one of those savants. She's incredibly intelligent, like off the charts IQ. And so I remember when I was growing up, she never had to study. She was one of those kids that perfect grades with minimal effort. I think I might have been 7 or 8, but I remember this vividly when my mother sat me down and she said, so you know how your sister just doesn't have to do any work, but is going to get perfect grades? That's not you, okay? You're going to have to work twice as hard. But if you put in a lot of effort, I believe you too can get good grades.
That sounds very Nigerian mother.
Very Nigerian mother. But you know what? It really set me up for success in life. It just helped me realize that I could put in the work. I could teach myself. I could be curious. I could learn. And it made me realize that no matter, what the limitations others may place on me or place on myself, if I was willing to strive for it, I could achieve it. And that just set me up for the rest of my life.
The thing I take from your mom's perspective is the truth really is kind. Like if it's a 0 to 10 score and somebody's getting a 2, it's no kindness to inflate it. Tell people where they are, and then they have a chance of improving. So my take on what Nigerian mothers are is kind.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind.
One question we often get about sponsorship is, how do I find a good sponsor? It's on a list with grace and persistence. So it's this huge unlock in people's career. And how do I go about finding someone who's going to play that role in my life?
It's almost like someone saying, how do I find a boyfriend? Or how do I find a friend? When you meet someone, sometimes there's a spark. Right? There's a connection. So sometimes, even I go to speak at places, and after I speak, lots of people come and say hello. But sometimes there'll be a person who there's something they said or the way they were engaging in the audience. There was just that extra connection. And so when they then reach, they say, hey, Dara, I'd love to, follow you on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Feel free to do so. And then usually I'll give them, hey, when you reach out to me, use this in the subject line or use this so that you stand out. And then when they do, automatically, there's this relationship that has been created. Now, one of the things that is sorely lacking in today's world is the art of follow through, right? So often you meet somebody, there is a spark or a connection, and then you just don't follow through. But I remember when, early in my career, when I met people and there was that spark, I would follow through. So this was back in the day when we used to send handwritten notes. I know that seems very shocking in today's world where your agent is sending up your follow-up AI messages. But I would send handwritten follow-up notes. And all of a sudden, then I have this relationship. And I remember some of these sponsors were even relationships that began for me when I was in college. I was privileged to go to Harvard, and we would always have the most incredible speakers. Guess what? I would be one of the only people that ever sent them a handwritten follow-up note. So they would remember Dara, at the time, Dara Johnson. And then I would send them a Christmas note, a holiday note during the holiday season. I would let them know when I was going to do an internship. I would just kind of follow up with them. And so that relationship was cultivated. I remember when I was starting out, there wasn't a lot that I could offer them, right? I was just starting out early in my career, but I could offer encouragement. I could help them feel seen. I could offer just like a blessing to their day. I could just offer, even a compliment, right? These are things that are actually in short supply. Now, ultimately, what is a sponsor? A sponsor is basically someone who has credibility that you don't have yet, and they're in rooms that you are not. And so what a sponsor does is they can advocate for you by lending you their credibility. So they're in a room where you're not, your name comes up, and they can be like, oh, yes, Anne, she's incredible. I think she would be a wonderful person to explore for this opportunity. Or, there's just something about Anne. Like, I remember when I spoke here, she came up and she said that to me. She really stood out to me. That's someone we should listen to or we should invite to speak to us. They can all of a sudden lend you that credibility and be an advocate for you. And so by following through and investing in those relationships, you are increasing the likelihood of your name coming up. But more importantly, sometimes you do have to make a withdrawal, right? Sometimes you do have to go and say, hey, I applied to this thing. Would you be willing to pass my resume to the hiring manager? Would you be willing to you know what, if you haven't followed up, the energy that I'm going to put into that will be a lot lower than if you're someone who has been following up with me. And by the way, sponsors usually are very busy. So they might not be able to do that 30-minute coffee break that you want to do. They're not a mentor, but they're certainly someone that you can have cultivated a relationship with over time by just being present, by staying in touch, by following through and keeping that relationship alive, sharing with them your updates. You know how many recommendations I've written for people? Do you know how many people have replied to just say thank you or even let me know if they got in or not?
Wow.
It's shocking. I'll write a lot of recommendations, and I'll tell you, maybe 20% will reply to let me know if they got in or not. These little things make a massive difference, and it's just in short supply.
I love this good housekeeping, like the basics. This is
basics.
This is basic stuff that we often don't do. Frances, I know you think a lot about who's in the room, who's out of the room. What's your reaction to hearing Dara talk about this?
When you asked, Dara, I was expecting you to say you don't find them, you attract them, but you actually find them. I'm going to shift from only attracting to cultivating and follow through. As you were saying it, I'm not sure anyone has ever told me whether or not they got in from a letter of recommendation I wrote. And if they did, I would remember it. What a beautiful pro tip on how people can differentiate. And it is where I'm seeing where both the grace and the persistence
and the grit.
The grit, all of that comes through.
Dara, you've talked publicly about a moment when you kind of knew you were ready to step into bigger leadership roles. For people listening, wondering if they're ready for this kind of leap, what's your coaching on how to answer that question for ourselves?
So I would say, there are a couple of things that stand out. So I think, there's a moment when you're blooming where you're planted, and when you're blooming, right? There's still so much to learn. You're still really excited. You're motivated. You're energized. Now, I will say no role is 100% of what you like. Okay. If you're in a role where 80% is great, that's a great position to be in, right? Even 70% is really great. You're always going to have aspects to every job that aren't as glamorous, And so you don't want to confuse friction with a time to leave, right? Because you still need to bloom even when there's friction, right? If you think about a plant that's germinating, there is that friction sometimes when you're coming through, and you need to be able to push through. So you don't want to leave before you've had time to bloom where you're planted. But when do you need to go to grow? So I would say there are two signs. When you're never hearing no, or you're always hearing no. So what I mean by that is when you're never hearing no, that means that you're not pushing anymore. You've checked out. Whether it's the system has worn you down or you just don't have the motivation, you're not willing to push the envelope anymore. Or if you're always hearing no, that means there are forces now that are beyond you, and you have reached the capacity of the change you can impact in that system that you're at. So when you're always hearing no or you're never hearing no, those are signals that, hey, it might be time to go to grow.
It's so actionable. Let's talk about what it takes to lead right now in this moment of fast-moving, high-stakes change inside so many organizations. I'm curious, just for you, how are you adapting to this moment?
Yeah, so there was one thing that I learned early on in my career when I was managing people that I think is more applicable now than ever, which is treat people how they want to be treated. And I think that's incredibly important, even when we think about how we talk about AI adoption, or when we talk about what it's like with the pace of change of things, or just the pressures people are under, or how everyone is navigating this world where now everyone has a platform, right? This changes the nuances. Even, one of the things that I think is incredible now for leaders, and I say this even to leaders on my team, you're in a situation where you're getting feedback from people who cannot carry the pressure you're carrying.
Yeah.
But they're giving you feedback, and you have to have the humility to be able to listen to it, the discernment to know what to take from it, and the strength to keep going, even when the pressure is real. And so I think just understanding that everyone is unique in this time. And as a leader, your job is to really think through how those people that are directly reporting into you understanding what motivates them, how to reach them, and then tailoring your approach for each of them. And there are three, concrete things that I try to do. The first thing is just show up, be there, be visible, be consistent, be present. The amount of time leaders just don't show up and no one knows where they are, no one knows what, it's like there's so much transition happening and it's almost like you're like, I can't find anything to anchor on. One of the things I've been doing with my organization, I started it during COVID and I've kept it through every organization that I've led ever since, is every single week, I show up with my team for a 15-minute stand-up. Anyone in the organization can come. I share with them what I'm doing that week, and they can ask me any question that they want. It's only 15 minutes, so everyone can kind of carve the time out to be there. I also record it so that it's available to anyone, around the world in case of time zones. But it's really important to me to just always be there. And then the second thing is like speaking up. Clarity is kind. Francis, it's one of the things you've talked a lot about, and it's so important to be clear. Now, as leaders, we won't always have all the answers. There'll be things we don't know, and there'll also be things we know, but we can't share. But there's a lot we can share. There's a lot we do know. What are we doing about that? And many times we're not transparent enough about what we are able to be transparent about. We focus so much on what we cannot say and what we cannot share.
100%.
That we don't say enough about what we can say. At the end of every week, I send a note I call Just a Note, which also has the things that are top of mind for me. So if you prefer to read, you can read. If you want to engage and listen, you can engage and listen. It's like I also record it. So if you want to just kind of listen to it like a podcast, you can listen to it. And so however people like to consume information, they can capture it and get it.
Every colleague you have has a movie screen in their pocket. And I think it's an opportunity that very few leaders fully realize in terms of the power of communicating through that device.
Absolutely. And just like giving information to people in a way that is interesting and engaging and that they're going to pay attention to. And then the last thing I try to do is I try to stand up. So that for me means being clear about what matters to me and being willing to stand up for my values.
And what's on that list for you right now, Dara?
I think right now it is really about empathy and compassion and grace. I think that those three things are in short supply in today's world. I think that one of the things that I really believe is we're all better than the worst things that we've done. And also none of us are also as great as the best things we've done either. And I think just kind of holding on to that is really important because I think so often when we're at the top of our mountains, it's so easy to just lose perspective and forget about just what other people are going through who might be in the valleys of their lives. And I also think when we are in the valleys of our lives, it's like important not to just have so much despair that we lose sight of the fact that there's still a way up and we can make it out of that. And so just kind of having grace, I think, for ourselves and for others, I think is really important.
In the beginning of the week, you do the 15 minutes, and then the end of the week, is it the Just a Note? Is that right?
Just a Note, yeah.
Is there anything to the bookends part of that one is at the beginning and one is at the end? Like, is that meaningful to you in some way?
The Just a Note at the end is very important. That always comes at the end because I think for me, that's always a point in time wrapping up of my week. And it's almost like being accountable to my team. No one is like, Dara, you need to tell your team what you did this week. But I want to let my team know what I did this week. It's a sense of my accountability to them. And Francis, actually, I have to give you a lot of credit because you said a phrase to me that really just was like a whoosh unlock. When you talked about high performance and high devotion. It was a philosophy that I had, but no one had articulated it for me as crisply as you did. That idea that when you have a high bar for others, you need to be highly devoted to them, to almost like inspire and get that performance that you're looking for. It's been how I lived, but I hadn't had that articulation. And as you gave it to me, I've really held on to that. And so it's that I'm expecting my team to rise. I'm expecting them to push through. I'm expecting them to kind of, we're charting new territory. We are forging a new path. We're doing things we've never done before. And so for me, it's really important that I'm incredibly devoted to them. And part of that devotion is sharing with them what's on my mind, letting them know what I'm up to, making sure that they have insight into what's going on. So if anyone picks, what's your CMO doing? They can all answer that question. I'm giving them those tools.
A lot of people have high standards and they don't know how to reveal the devotion. And we talk to them about having curated curious inquiry and asking questions and giving feedback. But you just add a third one to me, transparency.
Yeah.
So you're showing devotion by telling people what's going on with you.
Yes.
Mwah. Love it. Love it.
It's not many people who are able to break into Frances's frameworks, Dara. So
I think I told you,
this moment on the show.
I am actively campaigning to be president of the fan club. So here you go. I'm a fan. I love how you didn't give me the title. It's good. We got to keep people on their toes. You know, no participation trophies here.
There's no participation trophies over here.
Not on Fixable. Yeah. This is a moment where the human beings inside all of our organizations, they're asked to absorb so much change right now. I'm wondering how you are helping people emotionally just metabolize this moment. And in particular, people are alert and on their feet in today's workplace, but there's a risk that this tips over, and we see that happening in a lot of places. What is your experience in managing those risks and advice you have for our listeners?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, first of all, as a leader that I think is really important is going to bat for people. So what I mean by that is being willing to actually give of yourself and take a hit for your team. And not a lot of leaders are willing to do that. It's easy to advocate when there's nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It's harder to advocate when there is something to lose, right? When you are actually giving of your credibility and almost like putting yourself out there for your team. So I think that that's actually really important for people to see, because when people are going through as much change as we're expecting people to go through, as a leader, we have to lead from the front. I think, Frances, actually, you talk a bit about this, is the fact that people aren't afraid of change. They're afraid that change is going to make things worse. And so as a leader, when you go to bat for your team, that gives them an anchor. That gives them something that they can hold on to. They're like, you know what, Anna and Frances, they're for real, right? This might happen, but I know that they're going to do the best that they can. I know that I can count on them to be consistent with doing what they say. And so I think a lot about a say-do ratio. I think about that a lot. Anything I say, it is so important to me that I do the things I say I'm going to do. Yeah. Now, I'm not perfect. No human is perfect. Nobody's going to have 100% say-do ratio all of the time. But boy, we can do a lot investing in that say-do ratio to make sure it's like 90% of the time, right? You can't cash a check if you've never been making any deposit. So we are making the deposits by going to bat for our team that we can then withdraw on. So when something uncertain happens or something difficult happens, it doesn't destroy the relationship because there is a bedrock of investment that we have made. And we do that through that say-do ratio.
I love it. I love all of that. I do a lot of coaching in the work that we do. And for some people, I will give them the homework is for the next week, do exactly what you say to other people that you will do. Yeah. And for some people, this is a revelation in how it changes their relationships and experience of the world. It's a really good one.
I'm feeling sheepish right now. I fear my say-do ratio is not as precise as you two.
I'm going to blame Dara, Frances.
Every week is an opportunity to reset.
Let's talk specifically about AI. One tension that we continue to see is a gap in enthusiasm between senior leaders and people lower in the ranks when it comes to this technology. How do you explain that gap, and how do you close it? How can we close it right now?
Yeah, I think first of all, the biggest gap, unfortunately, is that some leaders talk a lot about AI, but they don't use AI. So I'm a deep practitioner. I'm in there. I'm building agents. I am a power user.
For people listening who are not power users, give us an example of an agent you've built that is being very helpful to you these days.
I've been hiring a little bit. And one of the things that's important to me is that I'm hiring people who are AI native and can, add value to my organization, like bringing in new different skill sets. And one of the things that I say a lot, AI is raising the floor, but it is human ingenuity that is going to vault that ceiling. And I think those people who are bringing creativity, curiosity, that are vaulting the ceiling, I call them vaulters. I think those are the people of the future. And so one of the things that I've been working on is how do I identify who a vaulter is, right? How do I really understand if someone isn't just, reciting to me with scripts from ChatGPT, but they're really actual deep thinkers, people that can vault that ceiling. And so I built a little, an agent that essentially helps me not only just analyze the different resumes, but as I ask a question and I get a response, it tells me what's the next question to ask. It gives me kind of a rating. It helps me really understand and engage. And so it's funny because when I get to that section of my interviews, I'll say, we're about to enter the AI section. I'm about to pull up my agent. Like I kind of talk them through. So that was something that I built and I shared with my team.
I love every aspect of it.
It's one of the last things I do in the interview. So it's like by the time we get to that point in the conversation, like they're also ready for it, right? So that it doesn't feel scary.
There's a lot of AI fatigue out there.
There is a lot of AI fatigue. And I have to say a lot of young people, because I spend a lot of time with young people. One of the things that I do in my role here is I oversee our education business. So I spend a lot of time with young people in universities. And it's been interesting to just see how they are thinking about AI.
So when you are working with your team, when you're engaging with young people, where do you go next in framing this moment and this technology in a way that is accurate, rigorous, optimistic? What is Dara's version of the story of AI right now?
Yeah. So first of all, I start with the disclaimer, I'm team human. So they understand I'm on their side. I'm on the side of the humans. Okay. This is a tool, it's a technology. By saying I'm team human, I'm letting them know the ethics matter to me. The safety matter to me. How we use this tool as society matter to me. Like any tool, any technology, any advancement, there are pros, but there are also cons. And I think as leaders, it is important that we acknowledge those cons. And then the other thing that I also say is, yeah, it's scary. Acknowledging that it's scary is important. And I think not enough leaders talk about how scary it is. I think people just sort of always, I feel like people are either complete optimists or they are pessimists. And what I am is a pragmatist. Yeah. Okay, I'm very pragmatic about the benefits, but I'm also very clear-eyed about the harm that it can cause. When we don't acknowledge, first of all, that we are team human, when we don't acknowledge that it's scary, it's hard to connect with the next generation because in their mind, you can say whatever you want to say, but entry-level jobs, the volume is lower than it was. Right. Those are the facts, because even many companies don't know yet. Companies are also doing a lot of layoffs, right? Whether or not it's truly about AI. I know there's this kind of a rhetoric on, is it really AI? Is it not AI? Regardless, people are watching a lot of job losses, right? There is fear in the system, and acknowledging that fear is really important, naming it. And then I think, one of the things I try to say is, okay, we all have agency. So what are we going to do about it? And then talking about agency and then sharing what actions I'm taking, and then also being clear on what I see available to them. It's then giving them the opportunity to take agency in a way that makes sense for them. And there's no judgment either way, but I do think it's important to be clear. And then allow people the option to be able to figure out what is the path that makes the most sense for them. I've spoken to people on campus who've said, you know what, I actually am going the complete opposite direction. And I now want to be in a field that has nothing to do with technology or AI, right? That's what makes sense for me. You know what? That is a very valid path. I've also heard people say, hey, I want to go into corporate America. Like, I want to really learn these AI skills so I can be a vaulter, right? So I can be one of those people that's bringing that human ingenuity to the work and is incredibly creative. That is also a great valid choice for you. So whatever's right for you, but just kind of being clear, I think, is important. Yeah. And I think part of what caused people to react the way they reacted was it felt like only one narrative is being put out. They didn't feel like they were being validated or that their fears or concerns were being acknowledged. And then, when people don't feel seen, they don't want to hear what you have to say.
When you think about the future of work and what's possible in this, team human and team robot working together, riff on that a little bit for us, because I think it will be powerful for our audience just to hear you talk about it. Like Dara's take on the future of work. 30 seconds, go.
Wow. Okay. I think the future of work is going to be differentiated by creativity, curiosity, and discernment. And I think that creativity, curiosity, and discernment are going to be some of the most valuable skills moving forward. because I think what's going to happen is a lot of things are going to be automated. Anything that can be automated will end up being automated. Not maybe tomorrow, but over time as this technology becomes more sophisticated. And so whereas humans can we add value? We will be able to add value by, where we can be curious, right? And we can help continue to improve and improve in a truly holistic way, improve for society, improve for our customers, improve for our shareholders, improve for our employees, right? That curiosity, I think, is going to be important. Discernment is going to be so key because there are going to be things where that human touch, that in person, that face-to-face, the manual, the inefficient is going to be the competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be important to know when you say, actually, I know there is an efficient way to do this, but I actually think the inefficient way is the way to go because that's actually what's going to help us deepen loyalty, or that's what's going to increase lifetime value, or that's what's going to help us stand out and get the competitive advantage. And so having that discernment is going to be key. And then I think judgment is going to be really important because judgment around ethics, judgment around privacy, judgment around safety, trust is going to be the new currency in the future of work. The smartest people are going to want to work at companies that they can trust.
Frances, what is your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, I'm reminded of why it was really love at first sight when we first got together.
I know.
So it's so energizing to me. It's the combination of rigor and optimism. You call it pragmatism, but I actually know a lot of really boring, emotionally flat pragmatists. So I'm going to call it.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not boring.
Yeah. I'm going to call what you have rigorous optimism.
Ooh, I love that. I'm going to take that. I love that. I'll give you credit. I love that. I'm a rigorous optimist. I like that. That's a better branding.
Yeah.
Look at you, Frances. I see a future for you in marketing.
I bump into it every once in a while. I really love the new skills, which are, to your earlier point, old skills, curiosity, creativity, discernment that went out of fashion, that are coming back into fashion. And so this, to me, is a manual. I can see your team human, first of all, when you have the T-shirts. Please tell me. I want to wear it.
I'll send you some swag, Team Human swag.
Yeah, you really have given a roadmap for how to get through this in a way that feels hopeful. And I think that's quite a gift.
I love your point ending with discernment and judgment. Like as these tools get better and better, and they can impersonate the human voice, I think, there is this risk that our judgment muscles get a little slack.
100%. And in fact, one of the things that is really important to me, just to not let that muscle atrophy, is anytime I have to make a decision, I use the data, I make my decision the way I would, the manual way. And then so even when I use an AI tool to check, I already have my point of view. So it's really important to me that I always have my point of view and my perspective, and I'm not outsourcing that thinking. And I think that's going to be the differentiator because everyone can have access to the tool and just put it in the tool, right? So if we're all just going to do that, then all of the answers are going to be similar. And so what is my unique perspective? What does Dara Treseder, what is the value that I have to provide? I think tastemakers are going to be the leaders of the future. And, to be a tastemaker, you got to have taste.
I want to live in Dara's world.
What's one AI experiment that someone listening to this can run tomorrow to get up this adoption curve?
So one of the things that you could run tomorrow is actually, if you are already using AI tools, you can, whatever tool you're using, you can write a prompt that essentially asks it to tell you, based on everything you know about me, what are my blind spots? And
so
how
good.
am I using you incorrectly? And that's actually a great way to get insight into what you could be doing better.
So good.
Dara, what is one thing you are fixated on outside of work?
Right now, I'm really fixated on the World Cup. My son is a soccer player. I will
Yes.
be honest and say I am not the sports mom. I'm the developing soccer mom. So I'm learning and just kind of really trying to engage with him at that level, and being excited is something that I'm fixated on getting good at. I'm fixated on getting good at it. I've been learning how to be excited about football and the World Cup, and what are interesting things to talk to your son about for a mom who knows nothing about sports.
I'm sure AI can coach you through this.
It's been very helpful. It's given me a lot. Dara, that is not the right way to talk about it. No true fan would say that. So I'm okay, great.
Amazing. Dara, thank you so much for coming on Fixable. It's been such a privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a gift.
So lovely.